So I'm now going to transition to our first sort of panel discussion, and I'm really excited about it. So we're going to hear some parent perspectives on this work, right? Sometimes we get a little too focused on, um, the system and not about parents. And we know that all those priorities that I just talked about have a big impact on parents and caregivers. And really, one of the goals of the campaign has been to highlight the important role that parents and caregivers play in early literacy, and also how school districts can empower parents to support their children. So today we have two parents in two districts at opposite ends of the state that have taken two very different approaches to early literacy and family engagement. I think it's a really clear illustration of how the choices districts make um, when it comes to curriculum, when it comes to professional learning, can either empower or limit parents' ability to partner with schools. So I want to welcome Jackie Castillo-Blaber from Niagara Falls City School District and Ebony Matthew from New York City Public Schools. Thanks both of you so much for joining. I know it's a busy time, and I know Ebony is taking a break from her classroom right now. So really appreciate you all making the time to be here. So I'm going to start with you, Jackie. I actually heard your story at an event in Buffalo a few weeks ago, and just really wanted to share it with other folks. So if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about you and your daughter's experience with early literacy in Niagara Falls, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. I'm a parent in Niagara Falls City School District. It's a small city school district, just outside of Buffalo. We're kind of a service desert, so you might as well think of it, our access to a lot of services that kids need, almost like a rural access. We depend very heavily on our regional BOCES, which is Orleans Niagara BOCES. I have a daughter. She's 8 years old. She's in third grade. She's dyslexic. She has dysgraphia. Her experience with early literacy. She's been struggling to read since kindergarten. In kindergarten, she would frequently be sent out of class and sent to go sit with a social worker because she couldn't keep up with letter instruction. There were some pretty clear signs of, dyslexia and dysgraphia that were missed. And she lost instructional time. She was seen as distracted, a distraction, unwilling to complete tasks. In first grade, she received 20 weeks of reading recovery as a tier 3 intervention. This is a balanced literacy intervention. A lot of people might know about it. It's intense. It's balanced literacy, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, one-on-one with a reading recovery teacher. Our BOCES is also a reading recovery training center. So during this intervention, they use level text to basically teach her how to read with whole words, and use 3 cueing to read. I look at the picture. Does that make sense? What does the context and things like that. Not a real actual focus on decoding in any way that's like structured and really set up for success. We knew within 5 weeks this wasn't working. The light went out in my kid. She stopped wanting to go to the library. She stopped wanting to read books. I think everybody knows this story, but I requested for it to stop and let's switch to another intervention or have her evaluated. And I was told the protocol is to full 20 weeks, go through a full 20 weeks of this ineffective, harmful reading instruction, which I believe is heavily influenced by the fact we have a training site here. And again, my daughter fell apart. The behaviors got worse. She began to get academic anxiety, falling apart, in classes, crying in hallways, crying in the bathroom, art class, like classes that weren't even reading. I had to pay for an advocate, which a lot of parents in my area cannot afford to do. I had to pay for an advocate to come to an IEP meeting, our initial IEP meeting. I had to identify my daughter and request an evaluation because Child Find did not work for her. And we were able to get approved third-party Orton Gillingham-based intervention for her, which a lot of parents in my district would not even know how to go about doing. So she's able to get this intervention. I have to drive her out to Williamsville, into the next county, Erie County, to obtain this effective intervention. after school. So her school day is extended. We usually don't get home till after 5 because of this. Second grade, the progress from the intervention is great, but it's slowed because my district has a patchwork curriculum. We have some science of reading, and we have a lot of other practices that are aligned with balanced literacy. It's a struggle. Third grade, which she's in now, third grade is a hostile place for a kid who can't read. Your peers are starting to notice you. You're struggling. Um, your teachers are not a fan of dealing with you at that point. She shuts down a lot, crying in the bathroom. When teachers are not kind, maybe you're snatching a paperback, and that's seen as extremely defiant. I've gotten emails saying she's lazy, she's defiant, she's doing it on purpose. She's heard herself talked about by teachers that she doesn't belong in third grade. She doesn't belong in the building. It's a scary place to be, and it's a dangerous path to be on if you're a kid who's a minority. They're disproportionately receive discipline, especially kids in special education too. And we're a majority minority district. I'd like to get back to the part about us being a service desert. So it's not sustainable for her to continue to receive her only real reading intervention offsite. For us to have to drive into Erie County, it's a lot to put on my family. And I don't think many other families in our district could do this sustainably for the amount of years that a kid with dyslexia needs it. It's not FAPE. It's not a free and appropriate public education. It's outsourcing the public education that she needs. And just to put a human face on this, she has a brother, my son. He's 5 years old. He's high support needs, autistic, non-speaking. I should be focusing on really getting this kid what he needs to be able to speak and be independent. And I can't. I have to make sure she can read because she's going to be a caretaker. And I am unable to get him additional private speech therapy because that's also out in Williamsville and Erie County. And I have to choose. My husband calls it like, it's like a Sophie's choice, where I have to decide which kid gets the intervention they need. Do I give it to my daughter? She needs to be able to succeed. Or do I give it to my son? Because I can't afford to drive him to his autism school in Amherst, her to her reading intervention in Williamsville, and then him to his private speech in Williamsville every day, all day. I live in Niagara Falls. I should be able to get these things in Niagara Falls or Niagara County. I pay taxes. It's just like the decision I have to make is it could be that my son just never acquires speech, and I think that's unacceptable. So we've spoken at every board meeting and done everything we're supposed to do, textbook, involve parents, to get our district to hear and communicate, the burden that we're placing, because 75% of 3rd to 8th graders in our district are not reading at grade level. And it's a huge problem. And in November 2024, my superintendent and the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction stated that they plan to certify in September that reading recovery, Fountas and Pinnell, literacy footprints, all balanced literacy instruction aligns with the science of reading.
God.
It's simply not true. Again, this is it. It is my belief that this is highly influenced by the fact that we have a reading recovery site with training site within our regional BOCES. They do our teacher training. It's not acceptable. We've been prevented from meaningful participation. So when we talk about local control and things, like, does that actually include parents and community? Because we've come out and we've said, this is not okay. There's just so many parents that can't afford to be doing what I'm doing, and I can barely afford to continue to be able to do it. So I hope we can put a commitment behind this and finish the job, because literacy cannot wait for these kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story. It's incredibly powerful and unfortunately is happening in other districts across New York. And it's not, you're absolutely right. It's not acceptable, particularly when we have a new law on the books that is supposed to prevent this. So some more to come on that. And I think, again, it just reinforces that curriculum does matter, right? The choices that districts make do matter. And also, again, just reinforces that last year's investment was not enough, right? Not even close. So now we're going to shift over to Ebony with, I think, a little bit more of a positive story of her experience in New York City. And as I mentioned, New York City has had this very ambitious New York City Reads initiative for several years. And Ebony brings sort of two unique perspectives as a parent as well as a teacher in New York City. So Ebony, if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about your experience with New York City Reads, and maybe we'll start as a parent. And maybe if you can share a little bit about the Parent Ambassador program that you participated in.
Okay. Hi, good morning. My name is Ebony Matthew. I'm a parent in District 8 in the South Bronx. Like he said, I'm a parent ambassador for New York City Reads, where we had a 10-week program where they taught parents about the science of reading, to give us a understanding of how our children process reading and how they develop becoming fluent readers. It wasn't really in depth, but it was enough so that a parent can help their child better at home, better support their children at home. They gave us great tips on how to make reading fun, where they gave us different games that we can play, during our daily activities, where if we was going to the store, if your child is 3, start with the what letter is this, or looking at the signs, this means stop, this means go. They just helped us further understand how we can help our kids to become fluent readers. In the district that I'm in, we have a lot of bilingual parents, so the language is new to them, so they help them get a better understanding of how to help their child at home, even if it's not in English. They had translators where they translated in their language for them so that they can better understand how to help their child at home also. In the district that I'm in, our students struggle with reading. So with this new initiative, I noticed that most of our students have gone up in reading. As I said, my child, over the summer, I was kind of scared about, that summer slide that most kids do, but I'm happy that because of the different skills that we learned within the Parent Ambassador program, I was able to keep my child reading during the summer. And when he came back in September, he didn't do the summer slide that normally happens. He actually went up a little bit in reading. Also, my kindergartner, she knew going in, she knew all her letters and sounds, and that made it easier for her to transition into kindergarten and have a love for reading. As a teacher, my district is kind of different than other districts because, as I was telling Jeff the other day, my superintendent actually got a group together to unpack our literacy curriculum, which a lot of districts, I'm just finding out, didn't do. So they unpacked our curriculum where each school in our district should be on the same story and on the same lesson from the beginning to the end of the school year. So it made it easier for the teachers to actually go in and teach because they unpacked it to where they let us know what the learning target should be and what the students should get by the end of that lesson. And because they did that, I noticed that even with my own class, that if I had a trouble spot with the lesson, I was able to go to my grade partner and say, hey, did your class get this? What did you do to better help your students? So that because we're on the same page, you know, it makes collaborating with the teachers in your grade much easier. And like I said, my district is like one of the only ones that actually did that, because when I went to town hall and I said it, I had teachers looking at me like, what? They did what? So yeah, and then we have different professional learnings. We have ongoing professional learnings around the science of reading, where they have different coaches that come in and help us you know, dive more into the science of reading and dive more into how to better help the students become fluent readers. Jacqueline, I'm sorry about your experience. That I was trying not to cry because I really feel, you know, for you and your daughter. But the science of reading, the New York City Reads program that they have here, like I said, last year when we first started it, I noticed that the students kind of struggled. But now, because of the pacing calendars, now because of the more collaborative opportunities that we have across the grades and, you know, amongst each other, it's making it so that the students understand things much better. And because we have the support of our superintendent, and you know, she's really heavily in our schools, making sure that our students know exactly what, you know, they need to know. That's what makes it, you know, easier. And as for a parent, the reason why I did it for the parent side is because I wanted to find out a better way that I can help the parents that I have their students in my class. You know, not just for my own student, my own children, but for my students that I'm teaching. How can I better help their parents to go home when they go leave at the end of the day? How can I help them better understand what our curriculum is about? If the teacher and the parents is not, you know, collaborating, and they don't give the teachers the support to help the parents, and how the parents going to help the teachers, you know, it's going to be a never ending battle. So I just feel like this program helped bridge that gap between the educator and the parent, because now they came in and gave the parents not everything that the teacher knows, but they gave them an overview of what the teacher is doing in the classroom. So it really helps. And pretty much that's it.
Okay, thank you, Ebony, so much for sharing your story. And, you know, I think it's just such an illustration, right, of what a district does, how much it matters, right? Obviously for students, obviously for educators, but also for parents. And so two very different examples. Really, thank you so much for sharing both those really powerful stories.